I was sat at the back of the room watching the first 3 sessions and thought, which idiot gave me the role to follow them after they've set such a high benchmark? So welcome everybody. So this session is all around customer excellence, and we've brought 3 of our customers up on stage with us to talk about their experience of not just using Iris as a product, but also about their businesses in general. So I'm going to sort of ask a series of questions, a bit of a fireside chat, and then as we go through that, we'll let the guys interact with each other and sort of see where the story goes, really. So, firstly, to Stuart on the far end, one of the things that we've often talked about and looked at in your profile is that, effectively, you don't have an office. Yeah, you don't have a central location where everyone sort of is based. So you have a lot of home workers. How has that worked, and how has the team embraced that?
I was going to say it's certainly helped with work-life balance. It really started off out of necessity. I started off in sort of a little study downstairs, and then we did a loft conversion, and that's really the centre of the Harris business empire. And it was really, this all comes back to Iris, really. The technology was so good, that's what enabled me to have a home office from a loft conversion. So we started off with a little server to start with, a physical server, and then we're now with the Iris hosting. It's absolutely brilliant. Wherever we are, either from home, with my staff or myself around the world, we log in, we get the job done.
So, Alistair, you, last week, Sunday, you came back from a skiing holiday? Well, skiing trip.
Yeah, only just given the weather in Chiara trying to stop us getting home.
I always thought it was a joke that accountants went skiing in February after tax season, but you've actually proved that it's real. So you actually took some accountants with you out there. So do you find even working abroad and accessing your systems is a way that you can work now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with cloud and technology, you can work wherever you want, whenever you want. I mean, Luke and I were sat in a chairlift. We were obviously discussing things. We were having a strategy session, of course, and discussing things, and we'd check in on emails and Slack and that sort of stuff with our clients and with our team back home at base, who are, I have to add, were working very hard for us while we were away enjoying ourselves.
Oh, good. And David, I think one of the things that when I talk to a lot of our customers and like the audience is that they've started to embrace this idea of cloud, as Alistair mentioned, and that for many, the first step they've taken is probably cloud bookkeeping.
Yep.
And then we talk about this idea of app stacks and the cloud journey. What insight could you give to the audience in terms of that sort of step 2? Once they've got cloud bookkeeping nailed as such, what should they look to do next?
So a lot of people have obviously got the cloud accountancy like Xero done. Some of them have even added on the next layer of apps. They then kind of freeze because they think, well, what comes next? And it doesn't have to be as scary as they think. So the next step is to just pick an industry and just focus on that industry. Pick the apps that are appropriate for those people and just go and sell that app. And you get more and more confident as you're doing different ones. So the last app I sold had 18 apps, 3 layers, all talking to each other, all talking to Xero. And you can slowly work your way up to that. So it doesn't have to be scary.
So is it picking the client profile, like the group of businesses that you work with, rather than thinking it's a one-size-fits-all approach?
From an app perspective, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not saying your firm should only work with one industry, but it's the best way of getting into apps is just to focus on a piece at a time. You don't freak yourself out so much then.
Alistair, obviously, I think 3 years and 11 days old your firm is now.
Yeah, we're young, aren't we? 3 years and 11 days, yeah.
Started with 0 clients, no staff, just you and Luke. One of the things that we sort of in your bio is it actually isn't just accountancy that you do, and you've got this idea of data analytics.
Yeah.
What would you really describe that for the audience as what you deliver to your clients by doing it?
Yeah, so if you look at what Flinder is, ultimately we're an accounting, consulting, and data analytics business. We are not there just to file financial statements or to run payroll or to do those sorts of things. We exist to help businesses to meet their potential and meet it faster than they could without our support. So. And where did we come up with that? Well, actually, we heard what clients or what businesses, SMEs, were looking for. And they're looking for much more of a business partner than just solely an accountant looking after and just talking about P&Ls and balance sheets and filing maybe compliance. They're looking at someone that can really enrich and add a lot more value to them, but leveraging what is traditionally an accounting role and experience. And so kind of to your question in terms of the data analytics, for us, we very much look at helping the business as a business. And so when we talk about data analytics, we look at not just financial data, but we look at data from other non-financial sources in the business as well, whether that's an EPOS system, a HR application, an e-commerce system, a CRM system, and we're bringing all those different core applications together and enriching the experience of what that information is telling them. And it's not just what's happened in the business, but why it's happened. And the non-financial data gives that enriches that and kind of adds that flavor and color, if you like, rather than just my revenue's gone up or down, or my profit or EBITDA's gone up or down. It tells us why. We've sold more to a specific customer that's got a higher margin, we've sold to a different country, et cetera, all that sort of stuff. And so it's very much about enriching and adding, there's a proliferation of data at the moment, and it's about we're really leveraging what the data is available in businesses, not just isolated to finance, and telling a story of what's happening in that business with a view to them making much more proactive, better decisions going forward to increase revenue or to improve other parts of the business.
I read a book a couple of years ago called Remaining Relevant. And it talked about in the accountancy profession, you could be sort of a past tense accountant where you're looking at very historic information. You can't make an informed decision because it's 6-12 months old. Or you can be this idea of real time where you're talking about real information. And cloud really does enable that. Is that what you're offering in terms of the way that you work then? Is that real time?
So as a standard, so most accountants deliver monthly management information to their clients once after the end of the month, maybe within 1 week, 2 weeks. We deliver information to our clients 1,440 times a month. That's as a minimum. Sometimes it can be greater than that. Every 30 minutes, our clients get new information. Now, clearly, if you post a wages journal or depreciation once a month, for example, that's not real time, but there are elements of accounting and of business that are real time that we're delivering back to our clients so they can make much more real time, accurate, relevant decisions on the back of that.
And David, one of the things that you've introduced over the last 2 or 3 years is this idea of this sort of virtual finance director into your organization. How is that sort of, I suppose, rolled out, and what kind of people do you use to do that service?
So, virtual finance directors, a lot of firms have done for a long time. That's nothing new, but we've rolled out virtual financial controllers as well. So we use technology to do a lot of the work, keeping the costs down for us. It means we can have much lower qualified people doing the advice. So we would take someone who's maybe 1 year, 2 years post-qualified and train them up to be a virtual financial controller. Whereas to be a decent VFD, you have to have at least 7-8 years under your belt. So you're able to take someone who's much cheaper, much more affordable. You can sell them into the client. You can still get really, really good fees for them. And they use technology to not only talk to the client, to make it more efficient, but to also refer stuff back to the office. So they've constantly got the whole team helping them rather than just one individual.
Right, yeah. So they're sort of using the back office of your back office to really drive that efficiency there.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, certainly both of our firms have got Python coders in-house. And that makes a big difference.
I think that went straight over most. So what would you describe that as then?
So a software coder, someone who can help write dashboards or make things work better, connect software packages, rather than just the whole log into Xero, log into Receipt Bank and it's connected. Yeah. By having, Python's one of the biggest ones, Ruby's another big one, but they are simplistic code to enable software packages to talk to each other and provide information.
So for my benefit, not the audience, my benefit, this is, you might have, say, a half dozen reports that you would run from various applications that you're logging into of a day. This would sort of amalgamate those sort of key KPIs into a single dashboard kind of report.
Exactly. You can gather data from all over the place and put it into one dashboard. Good. Or one report or whatever you're looking for.
Yeah. I think one of the frustrations maybe from both of us in the past has been, which Iris Elements is opening up, which is fantastic to see, is that applications have traditionally locked down data, and I still have frustrations with other type of apps on the marketplace that they're good, but actually they're housing and they're locking down very precious data within their environment and not releasing it. And actually the connectivity and leveraging that data across the whole environment is supremely powerful. By definition, we will not work with an app partner that will not open up their API.
Yeah.
So we can use this data, Python coders or natively, or any other means. It's hugely important and will become even more important. So it's great to see Elements is kind of moving forward in that.
Because you have a role in your business of a data engineer as such,
Yeah.
which is fairly unique for a firm. Is that the person that's doing that manipulation for your client and yourselves?
Yeah, so we have a data engineering competence, and they are data engineers. So a little bit similar, they have Python, so software coding skills. They will manipulate, cleanse data. They will connect applications, like write our own code to connect applications. But it's all about understanding and leveraging, getting the best of data from across core applications and stitching it together. So we call it heterogeneous data mashing. So mashing those different data sources together and making sense out of them. That's kind of what the role of the data engineer is. Equally, we've moved into the area of robotic process automation, which is essentially where some systems you can't do that. You can engage and program a robot to do certain activities that means the human beings in your team don't have to do them anymore. A robot can work much faster, can work 24 hours a day, and it can release your person to do something that we call much higher value adding activity, whether it's the virtual FC or virtual FD role, but add that business partnering concept and shifting some of that work to a robot rather than a human being.
So it's a different kind of outsourcing as such. You're outsourcing to technology.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, previously we'd look, 5-10 years ago, we'd look at outsourcing to lower labor rate arbitrage locations, and now our first question is, how do we automate this?
Yeah. So Stuart, one of the things that we've spoken about is growth, and that your firm over the sort of the length of time you've been an Iris customer has grown. How has technology from the outset really enabled you to do that? Because you do work from home, you have staff that work from home, you don't have that one central location. How has that worked?
It's been absolutely brilliant. As I said, well, I hinted at it earlier, work-life balance is absolutely brilliant. And I have to confess, I absolutely love my gadgets, but you have to use them in the right way. Harking back also to Iris, the software is so powerful, it's integrated. I often tell new clients it does the number crunching quickly and efficiently, and then gives me thinking time, to be able to do some tax planning, review the work at the end of the job. It's been absolutely fun. So actually, I make a big joke of being the friendly accountant. It's my marketing, and I plug it mercilessly. But it's so important explaining what's happening in plain English. It's so important for people to know that. And actually, going back to what everybody else has been saying as well. So with my type of client, I act for quite a few smaller family businesses, I suppose. And actually, that's what I am as well. I've got my company secretary, my wife out there, the real boss of the business. It's very personal, the service, but actually it's the technology behind it. I've got a lot of clients also using the off-the-shelf bookkeeping packages, the online packages. So you've got Free Agent, Xero, Cashflow. They're all absolutely brilliant. And again, they help the clients to run their businesses properly. And then I probably come in, during the year helping them with it, and then at the end of the year doing the accounts and the tax. And so, it's right. It's not just about accounts and tax returns. Yes, they're important, but it's actually running your business, growing your business. And I've done exactly the same. I've grown my business. I started off sort of on the lowest levels with Iris, whatever it was, 25 licenses, 50 licenses. That's how I built up the practice.
I love the fact you think your wife's out there and not shopping.
Yeah, I've got to be careful.
I know the lights are bright, but...
no rude jokes today to me, for me. I'm not allowed to sing today because I've got a microphone.
All right, okay.
So definitely no rude jokes.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we took our sort of our road show on the road in the autumn, and one of the things that came back as quite a lot of feedback from the audience then was this idea, this talent gap, in that they were struggling to find the right type of people, or they weren't sticking around for very long because of different better offers and things like that. And it was becoming a bigger challenge for people. For some, it was the idea that they couldn't find anyone at all. So when there's someone in the middle of the countryside, it wasn't that they couldn't interview anyone. There was no one to interview. Everybody, I'll start with you, Alistair. What do you think the challenge is that the profession faces from a talent gap point of view?
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge question, really. That's quite a difficult question.
We've got 15 and a half minutes.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm sure we can get through it quite easily. I think everybody here probably has the same challenge in terms of talent. If we look back, say, 24 months ago at Flinder, we really struggled to recruit. We were using recruitment partners that didn't really understand our business, what we stood for, what we were about. We were interviewing the wrong types of people. Kind of fast forward that a bit by 12 months or so. So last year we really turned a corner in terms of our recruitment strategy. I think one of the things that we did which really transformed that, and we hired something like 15 people within 15 months, which is quite fast. We kind of opened the doors to what it looked like in Flinder, what it was like to work, what it was like to work at Flinder. We very much believe in our values. We have 5 values which underpin who we are, what we do, how we live and breathe, and we recruit to it. We educate people by it. We assess people by it. So we really live and breathe those. So value-based is very important. That's one of the most important, and how we actually, our first interview with someone is around those values. In terms of the skills, I think some of them cross over with our values. So entrepreneurial is actually a very important skill for us, but that's specific to us as a business. It might not be the same for everybody else in the accounting world. For us, actually, technical skills are really a given. If someone's qualified, part qualified, we obviously do assess them. We assess them in a second interview and a case study. But actually, for us, that's a given. There are skills that for us that are more important, such as communication skills. And that's two-way, of course. That's communicating with impact, getting a message across. Because if you can't get a message across, then actually, what's the point? You're not business partnering with a client, or working as a team with your teammates. I think listening is obviously, a big part of communication and probably the more important part of it. So I think being able to adopt silence quite often is very important. Probably one that I struggle with, if people that know me. So I think listening to what clients are asking, what they're wanting, and understanding their business a lot more. But I think also challenge is a big skill that a lot of accountants probably shy away from, and so we challenge our clients. We push back if we think there's a need to push back, so they get the most out of us. I think a lot of times in a professional services relationship, the professional services or the professional sometimes kind of just because they're on a contract there or they're working with them probably just listens and doesn't push back too much. And I think one of the things that we do very differently and what we look for a skill set in our people is we want them to have a voice, and we want them to raise that voice and tell the clients what they think, because that is really the power of what we're delivering as a consultative experience.
Yeah, thank you. And David, very sort of connected question. The impact of that, what do you see that on a firm, and how do you sort of look at solving it through technology? Because sometimes it isn't just about people. So.
No, it's not. So with regards to the app stacks, they're not just client-facing. You can use them back office. So we've built a lot of really slick, easy-to-use systems in-house. Not quite full on AI, but getting there. For example, an engagement letter that used to take the admin team an hour to do now takes 3 minutes. They just fill something in. There's over 20,000 combinations that it pulls in to build it into one. The whole client onboarding process has been made a lot slicker because it's automated. So you're needing less people. I think the talent gap itself is actually a really interesting one. So Steve Cox and I were obviously in Accountancy Age not so long ago talking about Gen Alpha. And when Gen Alpha hits, it's going to make the talent gap even more tricky. That is a generation that's been brought up with their entire life of coding. It's going to make it far trickier for a traditional accountancy firm to go and actually find quality staff. Those people are going to be going to look for firms they want to work for, not firms that necessarily want them. Right. So it's a big picture that we need to be looking at as an industry, and I don't think enough people are looking at it yet.
Yeah. We've given you a singing microphone now, Stuart, rather than that.
Be scared. Be very scared.
In terms of the growth of your firm, what's the impact it been on terms of the technology part, in terms of the size of team you've needed? Is there a correlation between efficiency of software and automation of processes and that?
That's a tricky one. In fact, I have to confess, I've actually been very lucky with my staff. It started off with just me on my own, and as the practice has grown, I've actually bought a couple of other practices, and I've inherited staff, and I've been very lucky in that respect. I know from when I've worked previously, actually you can be lucky with youngsters as well. They are an investment, and actually, you know, if you put the time in, hopefully you get some good staff out of that. The other thing I've actually recently, networking is an important part of my business as well, so that's actually how I get a lot of new clients. And actually same with staff as well, sometimes just keeping your ears open when you're looking for someone. I've picked up some good staff that way. Funny enough, I've got two daughters who are actually, well, one's still at uni and one will be looking for a job shortly. And again, I've used the networking, you know, to look around for work experience for them.
Alistair, you talked about the, I suppose, your view of your, I suppose, software partners and providers in terms of opening up their data so you can do it. Yeah. In terms of your relationship with Iris in particular, what's the one sort of, I suppose, tip and piece of advice you would give the audience in terms of the way that you use our product? Because obviously you're fairly new into it, really, in terms of sort of the age of the firm.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're 3 years old, right? And in year one, it was setting the tent up to a certain extent and just kind of finding our feet in a way. I'm ex-Big Four, right? So it's very different environments coming to the SMP world, so small, medium-sized practices. I think for us, what Iris delivers is those 42 years of experience. And I think before we joined and worked with Iris, we worked with some other applications which, you know, were cheap as chips when we were setting up the tent, but actually didn't really, well, not didn't really, they didn't do what we needed them to do. And so we moved to Iris. We use, you know, 3 different Iris solutions at the moment, including payroll, stats, and tax. And actually, it meets with the wide range of functionality that we need across that. We work with very complex businesses. And so, yeah, it's about the robustness and the experience that Iris brings to the suite of technology that works for us. Yeah.
So David,
although I have to say I'm really excited about Elements when that comes on for us and to see what that looks like.
You obviously go to the expo. There's a guy there with a demo. David, in terms of your firm, obviously you've been around a bit longer, a bit bigger, multiple offices and things like that. In terms of the advice of I suppose, multi-partner, multi-office firms, what would be the big thing that the audience should take away from your experience of using Iris and the suite?
So it's easy to understand why people think it's like a huge oil tanker that they're trying to turn. Iris can become very cluttered over time, so you need to keep it clean. On the other hand, it is a very good system. I think with Elements coming out, or Darwin as we knew it, it's going to be an exceptional product. It's opening up the API. It's giving you extra functionality on top. So anyone that was thinking, do I want to stay with Iris? It's really expensive. There's other cheaper alternatives. Well, actually, Elements is going to add loads of functionality that those others can't add, whilst keeping the traditional linkages. So we could all move to a specialist CRM package that's just for accountants, but it doesn't connect to the accounting software. So that's one of the real big bonuses. So I think with Elements coming out, it's a very exciting time. We've been using parts of it for several months now, and it's certainly getting there.
I think one of the things that you obviously talk about in this area, and you briefly mentioned that, is the idea of clean data, and that whatever you do with your practice, when you start thinking you've got lots of tax and accounts information, is that when you want to sort of turn that around and use it in a way that you can advise your clients, you need to make sure that that information is consistent and things like that. So have you sort of undertaken that exercise? Because you've sort of had Elements already to play with, really, haven't you? So have you sort of seen that already, that it's going to be something you do?
Yeah, so we went through an exercise probably 18 months back of going properly paperless. We've been saying we're paperless for some time, but actually going properly paperless, getting rid of all filing cabinets, scanning it all in, making sure it's gone. But at the same time, cleaning the system. So getting rid of all of the no longer acting clients off, making sure all the information was up together, actually bothering to contact clients and saying, is this still correct? Which it's all too easy not to do. And now we've got the clean data with Elements, it means we've got that functionality. And once we can bolt in the likes of Xero, et cetera, as well, it will give us an exceptional dashboard with clean data.
Stuart, the question for you is as David just mentioned, they've gone paperless. It's something that you did, I suppose, a number of years ago. Do you think that had a major impact on the way that you
Definitely. Again, it was, I had to do it. I had limited space. I didn't really have room for sort of, big accountants' files. as I said, so I scan everything in. I've been using Iris Docs also for a number of years now. It just works. That's the brilliant thing about the Iris stuff. It just works. Like, given the analogy about the Apple stuff, it just works.
Yeah. Sticking with you, what do you see next for you in terms of the next challenge? Because obviously the audience are sitting there listening to us and hopefully gleaning some ideas themselves about some of the challenges that they might have. What's the next thing for you, do you think?
As I said, I'm a fairly small firm, family firm. I've got sort of two states. One sort of is passive, where I'm I know I want to grow the practice a little bit more, but I'm actually just sort of keeping my eyes open for an opportunity. And then the active side is really my networking, going out, picking up the new business. So there's always opportunities out there. There's new stuff coming through. I'm actually really excited about some of the new stuff that is coming through as well, because I know that we'll be able to use that in the right way, basically to help ourselves, to help our clients. That's the important thing. It does, with all this stuff, it's really about sort of using the automation in the right way to do things quicker and more efficiently, and then be able to communicate with your clients. They literally phone up and it's Stuart talking to them. It's very personal, the service we provide, and I think that's important because you don't want it just to be figures on a page. You want to go through the story correctly. You want people to be able to run their businesses properly.
Alistair, you talk about data and your dashboarding being important for your interaction with your clients.
Yeah.
You effectively act as CEO of the firm. You run it. What's the key metrics that you get, which you think has a big impact on the way that you can see the future of your firm?
Okay, so us internally as a business.
Yeah.
So as you can imagine, there's a plethora that we look at and we've built ourselves. People is very important to us in terms of what that landscape looks like of our people, how far progressed they are in their exams, holidays, time off, that sort of stuff, because it needs to be a good balance. In terms of kind of revenue metrics or operational metrics, there are things like, Look Public, my business partner put something on a Facebook group earlier in terms of auto-publish rates, right? So we're trying to benchmark ourselves versus others in that regard. I look at MRR. That's my key one is monthly recurring revenue. Revenue expansion on accounts as well. That's another one that's very important to me. So for example, if we bring in a client on £1,000 a month 12 months ago, where does that typically get to within a 12-month period, a 24-month period? So I know, therefore, if we're bringing on £1,000 clients a month now, or 500 or whatever it might be, I know roughly it's going to go up by 1.5 within 12 months and that sort of thing. I look at churn. We have very, very low, virtually 0% churn anyway. But they're the main ones. It's MRR is pretty much the key one that I look at. That's all I care about.
Yeah, it's funny because actually the similarity between running a software business with high recurring revenue and an accountancy practice that ideally has high recurring revenue is very, very similar metrics that you would do. Yeah. Very final question, David. In terms of what you see next for your firm, what's the next challenge for you, do you think?
It's going to be splitting the clients. So you've always got the clients that just want the year-end accounts, and there's nothing wrong with that. We just need to make them as super efficient as possible. But then it's going to be focusing on the clients where we can do the VFC, the VFD, the ones that are paying us 50, 60, 70,000 pound a year on monthly recurring amounts. For a staff member literally going out 2 days a week, for example. That's where we're focusing on our business. So as I say, the actual production line, as we call it, for the ones that just want the year-end accounts, that's great. It gives you an income, but we're going to focus on the consultancy side more.
So do you see it two firms within a firm kind of idea? That you don't
rather than splitting out two firms, it's just two different ways of doing things. So people that just want their year-end and compliance, you still need to do it. But we're focusing more on the consultancy side.
Yeah, good. Well, thank you very much. Can we give the guys a really big round of applause? And thank you for coming up.